I hope everyone had a wonderful Mother's Day and that you celebrated with your family. If you celebrated it at home, I hope you had some way to communicate with others. On Saturday, which was just 2 days ago, I decided to get some things done around my house. Our shower needed a good scrubbing, so I got that done. And I hung new curtains in my dining room. And they had to be steamed before I hung them, so I did that. Tesla needed a bath because he decided to run through the newly tilled ground for our garden and got mud up to his knees. And so a bath he got. Fortunately, he just got his stitches out on Friday, so I could get him scrubbed up pretty good. And that's all it took for me to go into a flare yesterday when I woke up in the morning. And I think I started feeling it that evening as well, but was hopeful that wasn't what was going to happen. So today, let's talk about what a flare is. And tomorrow, I'll share what we can do. Well, we know that fibromyalgia symptoms fluctuate. Flares usually go right into my back, from the middle of my back down, but they can also be in my neck and shoulders. It's not fun. And I get really cranky, so that's not good either. It's just part of living with the disease. The symptoms will increase and decrease in intensity in the number of symptoms on a regular basis. But flares, on the other hand, are an exacerbation or a worsening of our symptoms. The flares can last days or even weeks. The triggers of flares can differ between each of us with fibro. For me, extreme stress, not getting enough sleep, and overdoing my household chores will trigger a flare. And imagine if all of those three things are present, the kind of flare I'll get. But when we got home from church yesterday, we left then and went to our daughter's home to celebrate Mother's Day. There was a cookout, a lot of wonderful conversation. We had fun. But since I was already in a flare, well, what happened to me when I got home? Well, I crashed. I fell asleep for about a half hour on the chair in the living room with the TV blaring. My mind and body were done. And that's okay. I'm sure I needed it. So give yourself some grace on those bad days, because flare-ups are temporary and we get through them. So about triggers. Well, overdoing it is my main trigger of a flare because I do this too often. You say, "Stop it, Dr. Pammy Jean." But who else is going to clean my house for me? I don't want my family to have their own houses to clean. I don't overdo it when I'm having a typical bad day. I do it when I'm feeling good. I try to get those things done that I put off because I know they're going to be physically difficult or take a while to complete. I know that each time I've done that, I think, I'll be fine. I'm feeling good. But every time I wake up the next day in extreme pain, usually in my back and neck. Normally, I'll pace myself. I don't mop every floor in my home in one day, nor do I vacuum the 3 areas where I have carpet on a given day. I don't do laundry just once a week. I do it every day. So it's not so overwhelming by putting it off and having too much to do. I've learned. But how do I pace myself when I have something bigger to do? Stress, whether it's physical or emotional, can cause a flare. A physical stress is like pulling a muscle or dislocating a joint or fracturing a bone. Or it could be having a migraine or having a lot of muscle tension or pain or being fatigued. These are the things that we experience normally with fibro. So if those symptoms are present and constant, they can trigger a flare. When we talk about emotional stress, it may relate to feelings of grief, a loss of personal security, a loss of self-esteem, or feelings of being overwhelmed. And if depression or anxiety exists in your life, those could also be emotional stressors. You could also feel emotional stress when you have a medical condition such as high blood pressure, heart problems, arthritis, asthma, or skin conditions, for example. I experienced horrible stress when I was preparing for my dissertation proposal and for my dissertation defense. For the proposal preparation defense, I got it really bad in my back and neck, so bad I could barely walk, get up and down in a chair without severe symptoms, or even bend over. I learned from my experience of the proposal defense as to what would work for me, and I'll talk about that in a sec. Prolonged stress can be the most significant factor in bringing on a flare. Just think about it. Your hot water heater breaks, you lose your job, your child gets sick. What happens to us when we've endured this prolonging of symptoms? A flare. But for you, it might be weather or temperature changes. But that kind of experience for me is not as physically triggering. But it might be for you. I mean, I live in Indiana, so we're constantly enduring temperature changes. And I think I've learned to live with it. It doesn't mean it doesn't cause me pain. But for me, it's not as severe a pain as when I'm enduring a flare that gets into my back. Yeah, I certainly do experience a fluctuating my symptoms when the weather changes, but not that severely. So how about you? I know that I can feel my muscles tense when I get too cold or even too hot. I haven't been through a change of treatment for a while, and I know that I can experience a flare when I change a treatment and it doesn't seem to be working. But we know that hormones play a huge part in our daily existence and contribute to our experience of fibromyalgia. But for those of you who are still going through monthly menstrual cycles, I feel for you. I cannot imagine, because I had terrible periods when I was young. And if I had had fibro then, I'm sure I would probably flare every month. For some, a poor diet can be a contributing factor to a flare. If you don't normally eat certain foods, and you eat those foods and find yourself in a flare the next day, you might want to consider that food as your enemy for you living your best life. I also know that traveling can be stressful. The long car ride, or worse, the plane flight, can potentially lead to a flare for many of us. But I've learned to make these situations better for me. I'll explain in a moment. Now, let's say you get sick with another illness, like a cold. That can also cause a flare if you endure a surgery or you get a tattoo, for example. Does that cause you a flare? I mean, I've only had 2 surgeries in my life. One was before fibro, and I've never had a tattoo. So if tattoos are important for you, just as cleaning my shower is for me, then I can make that comparison that, it may cause you a flare if you get a tattoo. But maybe you've had enough of them that they don't bother you anymore. Tell me about your experience of getting a tattoo. My second surgery was after fibro, and I don't think it flared me. Not that I recall. I was feeling too terrible from the surgery itself, and I had to take it easy anyway, so I think that helped. My main focus was on that area, so my back didn't really flare up like it does when I'm during a regular flare. And I'm wondering if prolonged smells, lights, noises cause you a flare. I know they can exacerbate my symptoms, but I don't get myself in situations where I have to endure prolonged sensitivities. Recently, we just put a little air freshener thing in our closet. But maybe you work somewhere you have no choice in the exposure of those kinds of things. Loud noises, bad smells, bright lights. Does that cause you a flare? Or have you learned to accept that situation and endure it? I hope you learned something. I send you gentle hugs and support. And give yourself some grace. We're all learning. Love you.
Got nowhere to go now. We just sleep on the couch. No place to call home now, but I'm sipping so sound when you stick around. Grew out of our hometown.